Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Matt Weber. Powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver, along with Matt Weber of Roar Internet Marketing.
Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Good. How are things going with you?
Absolutely fantastic. Hope you had a great Memorial Day.
It was good. It was fast. It went by really fast.
We got to get more 3-day weekends into the calendar.
I think so. Well, we work 10-hour shifts, every day. And then
That sounds so appealing when you're coming off a 3-day weekend, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. But, so, guys, we're switching gears today. Before I get into that, I wanted to mention to you, if you have questions, we're monitoring Twitter. You can go hashtag Search Talk Live on Twitter, and we will answer your questions live on the air. Because we are Search Talk Live, so we're live.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that we're actually live.
Yeah.
Like we are live.
We make very few mistakes. Just kidding.
But when we do make them, they're genuine. They're real.
Exactly, yeah. So, Matt, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself to everyone?
Yeah, I am the CEO of Roar Internet Marketing, a digital agency located just outside of Orlando, Florida, and really enjoying my gig here as co-host of Search Talk Live. I'm also the inventor of Smilelytics, which you can find at smilelytics.com, SMYLELYTICS, which is a platform that turns your Google Analytics data into memorable and fun photographs.
Right. And where can they see that at?
You can see it at smilelytics.com.
Nice. Now, today, guys, we're doing a lot of we've been doing a lot of SEO stuff lately, and I really wanted to switch gears a little bit. So today we're gonna mesh the two together. But one thing is, as everyone has said for many years, is content is king, right? So we're really in this day of in 2019. It's not about. I mean, it's even more than that. It's not 10x content. It's like 20x content.
Right. Yeah. And if content is king, we're really fortunate to have the content queen on the show today.
Yeah, definitely. Our guest today has a lot of content experience, and today our guest, our guest is Kristie Kellogg. She's the CEO of Dazzling. Is that correct? Did I say that right? Dazzling?
Yeah.
Dazzling Digital? Sorry, you have to say it together. All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction. And yes, it's Dazzling Digital. And now I have to share where that name comes from. So when you want to shine online, you choose Dazzling.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the industry that you've been in for a while?
Sure. So I've been in digital marketing for about close to 10 years. And I was in an agency for a long time, and then I branched out on my own. And before all of that, I was a journalist. So I've always been a writer. I've always been interested in content. And then when I was exposed to SEO, it was so exciting because now you have this opportunity to use science really to get your content in front of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. And I really love it. So currently, some of my clients include magazines like, Brides, Vogue, Teen Vogue, a lot of the magazines from Condé Nast. So I love working with them. That's like a writer's dream to get to work with magazines like that. So everything we do is very centered on SEO and getting traffic, and it's great. I also work with businesses, and I also work with Search Engine Journal. I do social media strategy for them, and I also write for them. So that's also great to partner with, one of the best search engine publications out there.
Wow, sounds like you stay pretty busy.
Yeah, I like to be busy though.
Yeah.
And you do have a prolific portfolio. You have written about an amazing range of topics.
Yeah, thank you.
But one of the ones you write about a lot is fashion and you are clearly an expert in the fashion industry. So I think what we would like to do is start the show with a little bit of fashion orientation to search engine optimization and content writing. So let's get your take on a few fashion aspects of content writing and SEO. Ready, Robert?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you're up first.
All right. So one thing I really want to drive home to all the listeners, and hopefully we get more listeners from this, but is the fact that content, I would say, what is it? Early last year, the year before, you had, let's say, Rand Fishkin. Let's do 10x content. And I feel that it's really gone up another level, everybody went up to that 10x, and now Google's kind of like, give me 15,
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
So the content really has to be compelling, and that's where I really wanted to start with you and what you could give us that would be really succinct for our listeners.
So let's start from a fashion standpoint, Kristie. Give us 3 things that are completely out of style now in content generation.
Okay, completely out of style. Having low quality content that's just there for the sake of content, that's obviously out of style. Doing anything intentionally deceptive or manipulative for a search engine, that also is completely out of style. And I think not using all the tools that are at your disposal. So analytics, keyword research, just like writing without a purpose, that would also be out of style.
Yeah, that's key. Writing with a purpose. What are you trying to get the user to do? And I'm so glad you said that. I think that's got to be something that goes out of style quickly, because what Google wants is that you've given the user clear, valuable content.
Totally.
Yeah, so let's dive in a little bit here. Now, I see this constantly. I see people just writing to write. I mean, let's take one of the industries I'm really familiar with is the legal industry. Let's take that for instance. Or it could be anything, but I think what people need to understand is when you write, the reason you need to write is to benefit if it's an e-commerce site or a legal website or anything like that, write to benefit or to complete the actual action that they're trying to get completed on their website. Just writing evergreen content that, it might be about the legal field, for instance, but write about something that they offer as a service, Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And Kristie, you have written about anything from fall foliage trips to auto care to weddings. What's your secret for preparing and researching to write great, valuable content?
Okay, sure. So do we want to talk about how we come up with the topics or how we actually get the info on that topic?
We definitely got to do that first part. Yes.
All of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're saying is you need a purpose when you're writing. So the purpose could be, it could be to promote something that the company is doing, like maybe there's a new initiative or a new service or something like that. Definitely worth writing about. But by and large, the reason we're creating content is to drive traffic. So content really begins with keyword research to find out the money keyword terms that you can be creating content around. I like to do that in 2 ways. One is to look at your competitors and see what have they created that you haven't created, and then that gives you so let's say your competitor is ranking for something. Well, obviously Google is expecting a site like yours to create content like that. So you already have a chance that you could get something on this topic to rank. So when you use a tool like SEMrush and you identify your competitors online and then you find out what they're ranking for, that can get you brainstorming about the kind of content you can create. Now, by no means am I saying to copy their content, but you can look at it as a starting board and then you can create something better or more comprehensive. Another way is to look for content gaps. just logically, like we're talking about the legal field, like what should you have on your website that maybe you've seen around, or you just think your customers are asking a lot, or you've talked to your customer service team and they've been telling you people are asking a question about a specific thing over and over again. These are great places to start brainstorming for content, but then you always go back to the keyword research to find exactly what phrase you want to optimize the content for.
And when we think about the business owners that are listening to the show, sometimes they forget that they are subject matter experts. And if you ask a business owner, why should I do business with you? They've got a reason, and they've got a really good spiel. So they've got some of the early starting points of that content that they need to generate. What your advice is, let's add it with some research that says, what are people actually looking for and where are the spaces in the marketplace? But I don't want anybody listening to the show to be intimidated over the fact that content generation is hard or complex, because at the heart of the matter, it is really selling your product or business, and nobody does that better than the business owner.
Right.
I agree. With a lot of clients that I've worked with that are business owners, one of the first things we'll do is just sit down and I'll interview them for like an hour or so and record everything they say and, learn. Like, that's a great place to start.
And even the business owner themselves can just kind of give his pitch, and everybody's got a pitch, right? Put that into a voice recorder, get it transcribed, and then you've got some starting points to break out some copy points to things to say. Because if you ask business owners to write it, they often say things that are different than what they would say if you were in front of them personally and they were pitching their business. And they lose a little bit of what makes them different when they have to write it than when they say it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
So tell us a little bit more about, okay, now you've done the keyword research, you've identified your target. What's next for you as someone who has written on an enormous variety of topics?
Okay, so the next thing to do, this is still like the sciencey part. So let's say we've got our keyword. The next thing I'm going to want to do is look at who's ranking in the search engine results page. So, and of course the featured snippet, and I'm going to want to see how many words each of those competitors had. So I like to look probably at the top 5. And then pay a special attention to result number 1 and the featured snippet. So if those, let's say they have 1,000 words or 2,000 words, that's what I'm going to need to hit or exceed. I mean, not exceed by a ton, but obviously there's that much to say about the content, and that's what Google is expecting to see. If I come in with something that's 300 words and the top ranking competitor has 1,000, I'm not even going to have a chance. So that gives me a good frame of like how long this content is going to need to be. There are exceptions. Let's say for some reason the top ranking content is really spammy and unuseful, and that's why it has like a ton of words, then maybe I'm not going to pay attention to that word count as much. Like, the word count is important, but not to the point that the content ever becomes fluffy or unuseful. So, but I'm going to use that as a guide, and I'm also going to just look at what they have. Like, with the subtopics of a topic, it's going to give me some ideas for what our content might look like if it's good. If their content is good. You want to see what the competition is doing. So then, in terms of like finding out about a topic, you can do research the way we've all done research for everything. You interview subject matter experts. I write a lot of articles for news publications, so quotes are always useful. Like if I'm writing a story about how to get into modeling, it's going to be way more legitimate if I have quotes from the CEO of a modeling agency versus me just writing my opinion, because who am I to talk about that? Like, it's just like any article you read, you want to consult with experts. Does that help?
It does. Now we're throwing around a word here, useful. What do we really mean by the word useful? What is useful copy?
Well, I think being useful means you're thinking about your reader first and foremost. So the weekend, how to save text messages on your iPhone. Okay, so obviously the reader really wants to know how to save text messages on their iPhone. So I'm going to get to the point. I'm going to, whatever ways there are, I'm going to share all of the ways. I'm not going to cut it short. I'm going to the options and give them a step-by-step guide if that's what needs to happen. I'm just going to answer their question.
You know, from a business standpoint, we're kind of changing the tact on the sailboat here, where it's a little bit less about selling and a little bit more about servicing. So back to your legal experience, you are providing content that really brings a context or an understanding of the issue first, selling second.
Yeah.
And that's the shift for a lot of people doing SEO content writing today. It's that kind of restraining yourself just a little bit from that urge to sell right off the bat and producing content more that is helping the user.
Yeah, and it's really not about selling, really. It's more about being authoritative and giving that, you know, show that you know what you're talking about and that you're a professional or an expert. Stressing that and that sells itself, you know. Is it just, you know, if it tells that person this guy knows what he's talking about and gets them to take that action.
Yeah, and yet still instinctively you go to a lot of websites and there's still that chest-pounding copy. You know, we were formed in 2012 under the values of honesty and integrity, and we've been around for 50 years, and da-da-da, which isn't content that actually helps somebody. That's not useful content. So that's where the orientation shift is for SEO content writing now.
Yeah, and it's really kind of a different animal, like when it comes to from products to then writing like evergreen content versus is like at least with the law firms I work with, like, you know, they have really long content. Long form content ranks really well, but the biggest mistake they were making is they were closing at the end. Not everybody reads, you know, 2,000 words.
Right.
They scan the content.
Right.
So it's important to have it up towards the top.
So, Kristie, has content changed formatically in the past couple of years? We see in our analytics that people have less and less of an appetite to read, and yet we know that long content ranks. How do we battle this intersection of a lower attention span for readers, yet the need to have longer, more robust copy than our competitors in order to rank? How do you handle that intersection?
That's a great question, and it definitely can be done. So we all know that readers have a very low attention span, and they're probably looking at multiple screens at once. So what we've found is, you know, a lot of publications, you might have noticed, every paragraph is just a sentence. Like each sentence is its own paragraph. And the reason for that is then the text is more broken up. Another thing, if you don't want to be that bold, I don't know what the word is. If you want to be more traditional, you can still use paragraphs. They just should be shorter. You should never have something that's going on for a long chunk. Another thing that keeps readers on the page is using bulleted lists or numbered lists, or this is super important, marking up your content with H2s or H3s and H4s where applicable. So not only will using H2s help keep the reader on the page and their attention on the content, it will also H2s help you get answer boxes. So that's another benefit of that.
So subheaders is what you're saying?
Yes.
Subheadings.
Yeah, so content really formatically now should be presented so that the reader can skim it. If they want to read it, they can read it. But it's really formatically got to be presented for skimmers and not readers. Is that your sense?
Well, I'm not saying that like we have to keep just the skimmers in mind. I think this is good for anyone. Like even someone who is going to read all the content, still having the headers is helpful because maybe I just want a specific part of the article, so I want to find it. This is also where using jumps can, like anchor jumps, can come in handy too.
Yeah. I think she's saying is with the subheaders, headings, is you hook them with those titles, so you get them to read that other paragraph and keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And how much time do you spend on writing good headlines and subheads versus body copy?
Oh, I mean, it's all one and the same. When I'm writing something, the header's like, it's very natural. Like, you know where you want to put a header. It's not like a separate process.
So do you scrutinize your subheads and your headlines to make sure that they're attention-getting and engaging, or does it flow naturally for you when you're writing that copy?
For me, it flows naturally. One thing, but I've been writing my whole life, so it might not be as natural for everyone. However, one thing that I will always pay attention to when I'm doing like a final review is were they not keyword rich? Because maybe the keyword won't necessarily. This is actually more when I'm editing someone else's work. So maybe the H2 they used was really clever, but it didn't really get to the point, or it wasn't like didn't have something related to the keyword. So that is probably going to hinder the chance of a featured snippet. So I'm going to make sure the H2s are very clear rather than clever.
So the audience may not know that in addition to being a prolific writer, you are also a widely renowned and very valuably used editor. What's the most common mistake you see people make in producing their own copy?
Oh, okay. That's a big question. Okay, so I think, right off the top of my head, not paying enough attention to making it look professional. Like, there should be, and like this is so basic, but there should be no grammar or spelling mistakes or just anything formatted incorrectly. And speaking of format, this happens a lot. People will use more than one H1 on a page, and this is not good for SEO. And I think the reason people will do that, or that they'll put an H4 instead of an H2, is because they like the way that header looks stylistically. But the thing is, these are very important to Google in understanding the hierarchy of the content. So if you don't like the style of an H2, like change the style or talk to your front-end developer. Don't continue to use them wrong, because that's just going to hurt your SEO.
That's well said. I've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah, and to me it's a lot like outlining. Remember back in middle school or high school when they taught you how to do outlining, your header tag should follow that same conceptual process of an outline.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do you pre-outline your content before you write it?
I'm thinking. No, not really.
So you're a stream of consciousness writer. It just flows from outside of you.
I guess. I mean, I think once anybody has experienced at something, they can just do it, I think outlines can be helpful.
Yeah, I think for people who don't write content as often and as well as you do, it may help them to write the outline first and come up with the headlines and then try to fill in the content. Because a lot of people struggle with that first starting point of writing good content, and it's almost as if they start with writer's block a little bit. And one of the ways to get past that is don't look at it as, hey, I have to write an article. Look at it as, I have to write an outline. And that's usually less intimidating for some people, because in general that's going to be like maybe 60 words or 70 words, as opposed to looking at the task and saying, oh man, I got to write 1,500 words about this topic. Do it bits and pieces, right? Walk before you run.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the research. I mean, we've talked about the keyword research and stuff, but what do you look at when you're looking at the competition and what they've are just similar articles? Do you look at that in a way where, let's see, how can I add to this and make it better? You know what I'm saying? When you're writing on a topic?
Yes. Right. So we obviously never want to just copy someone. So like if you're just reading a piece of content and you still have questions after, most other readers are probably going to have those same questions. So that's a good place to like find more things to add on. Also, I mean, if you are doing a search on Google and then you go down to questions people also ask, like that area, that's a good place to see like related content that you could maybe like add on to your piece of content. So yours is more comprehensive. There's also a website called answerthepublic.com. And that also helps you find like long tail phrases that are related to keywords. So yeah, if you're ever stuck for like, what else do I write about on this topic? Like those are good places. And it's like anything we all did in school. When you're writing about something, you just have to research it. A common mistake I think business owners make when they're looking to hire a content firm or a content writer is like they'll ask, oh, well, are you an expert in whatever field it is? that's not really the most important thing. What you want is someone with experience in SEO and content optimization and content writing, because the subject matter expert is not, they shouldn't be writing your content. The writer should be interviewing the subject matter expert to create the content.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Great. How do you know when your content is finished whether or not you've been successful and you've achieved the objective that the content had set out for it?
Well, you do your best, obviously, and everybody is different. Maybe you're using Yoast on WordPress to check your SEO, and also I have a note on plugins. So a plugin can only tell you so much, but it is helpful. Especially if you're starting out and you just don't even know if you did a good job. I think a plugin can be really helpful, because it's gonna review important things like, did you include the keyword in the meta description? Did you include keyword tags? Did you include it in the beginning of the body content, the SEO title, etc.? So that's one metric, but obviously when we're talking about trying to overtake other content and get a featured snippet and all these things, then you actually need your brain and assessing whether or not it's going to work. So you do your best, obviously, but then the way to tell if it was successful is to go back and see if your position changed or if you got the answer box. And that's different for every article. I've done hundreds of articles for Condé Nast, and sometimes they can change, they can get a good ranking immediately. Sometimes it takes a month. Sometimes it takes 4 months. So it's not always immediate gratification. And also, sometimes you won't rank at all. Sometimes you will do all the best practices, you will create a killer piece of content, and you still just won't rank. And there's nothing you can do about that because we can't control Google.
Yeah. So, Kristie, what have you found in the time you've been writing articles online to be, for those rich answers, to be kind of the connectors that you see on all the articles that you've written that show up in a rich answer?
Okay, for the answer boxes. The H2s definitely help. So I always would pay attention to what is currently in the answer box before you start working on a piece of content. Then that might give you some insight into whether Google is expecting to see a numbered step-by-step sort of answer box, or maybe it's just a question and answer. So just pay attention and then try to format your content that same way. And like I said before, Google really likes lists and headers for answer boxes. So I can think of an article I wrote that was a guide to the different kind of nail shapes. Mm-hmm. So every nail shape I marked up as an H2, and then those H2s are what are in the answer box.
Nice.
And when you say nails, I'm assuming you're not using the wood nails.
No, I mean fingernails. There's a lot of different shapes you can apparently turn your fingernails into.
I may have to read that article. I didn't know that.
You going to do your nails?
I got to get past just this one shape that I use. I've got to break out.
I got you. So let's, when we get back, what we're going to do is we're going to do who influences the influencer. We want to know, who do you follow on social media to kind of get your information from. So right after the break, we'll be right back.
Today's episode of Search Talk Live is sponsored by
Directive is an industry-leading search marketing agency fully focused on helping B2B marketing teams increase their results. If you're looking to increase your marketing qualified leads and decrease your cost per acquisition for search engines, I'd highly recommend you take a look at their site. We've actually had their CEO, Garrett Marguth, on the show, and I can honestly say these guys are doing some great stuff. I hear that they even have their own analytics system that lets you correlate your SEO, PPC, or content efforts directly to revenue. If you're a B2B company and thinking about switching agencies, or if you're in-house and need help, I'd give Directive a look. Visit directiveconsulting.com or call 949-214-4024. Again, that's 949-214-4024. Again, that's Directive at directiveconsulting.com.
Get your questions in on Twitter. Type hashtag SearchTalkLive and your question. Now back to the show.
Are you currently an SEO agency or an agency that offers SEO services to your clients? Hey, this is Matt Weber, co-host of Search Talk Live and an agency owner myself. I've got some exciting news for you today. There's a platform called SEO Monitor that is built specifically to help digital agencies provide more effective SEO campaigns for your clients. Their offering understands the dynamics of running multiple SEO campaigns and also managing multiple clients with just one platform. One of the best features within the SEO Monitor platform is the Business Case Builder. This tool literally allows you to forecast the value of SEO services into well-known business KPIs that your customers will immediately understand. Add that to conversion data from analytics and AdWords, and you get powerful transparency for forecasting the impact you'll make on your client's business. SEO Monitor offers world-class support, so they're there when you need them. And they've got top-level service level agreements to make sure your agency is always able to deliver to your clients. If you want to find out more about the great tool at SEO Monitor, go to SEOmonitor.com/STL. They've also got information about their Spark program, which is a $5,000 grant for SEO agencies or companies that are focused on SEO that have been in business for less than 3 years. So check it out. Visit searchmonitor.com/STL today. That's searchmonitor.com/STL.
All right, we're back. Sorry, we had a little mix-up on the the middle of the break there, but
it's exhausting doing those commercials live.
You probably could do it live, you know that. But Kristie, let's talk about who influences you. Where do you go social media wise, and who do you pay attention to get great insight?
Sure. So I work with Search Engine Journal, but I also get most of my news from Search Engine Journal. So they have so many writers and leaders that are on top of everything. So literally every piece of Google news or updates, or also updates related to the social media networks, it's all coming from Search Engine Journal. So I follow them and pay attention to them every day. Outside of that, people that just like inspire me, I think Larry Kim is like absolutely the best, and I love how he invests in growth marketing and thinking outside of the box and just making what you have work even more. Another person who really inspires me and I follow online and in real life is Virginia Nussey, who I've worked with her at 2 different companies, and she works with Larry Kim now, and she is one of the people that taught me a lot about content strategy and SEO when I was getting started, and she's so smart, so anything she writes or says, like, I pay attention to. Also, Danny Goodwin from Search Engine Journal, yeah. He is very smart, and I have the good fortune of actually getting to have like one-on-one meetings with him and like pick his brain. So that's awesome, and he's such a nice person. And then also over in Florida, again with you guys, I believe, you've got Lisa Beyer, who's another person that I just like look up to. She's like so smart and so savvy, and just really a good example of being a female business leader and just being awesome.
Yeah, she's down in South Florida. She's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a great list.
Yeah.
Now, you get to write about some really exciting stuff, and you told us before the show that some of the less exciting stuff we didn't know about. So tell us a little bit about what are some hints for people who might be listening to the show and saying to themselves, I don't really work in a business that's exciting as many of the things that Kristie writes about. Like somebody who's listening to the show that might be doing SEO for an accounting firm or for a plumber. How do they generate super exciting, riveting, provocative content?
Great question.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, an accountant is probably never going to create provocative content. However, they can create useful content that will drive traffic. So, and also like exciting is a subjective term. So like, someone who is an accountant might find what they're writing about exciting. So I think the key is to be useful. It's useful, not exciting. So let's say you're an accountant. Maybe you're going to start writing a lot of content that's around common questions that CPAs get asked, or questions about like tax time issues. Like, I don't know, I'm not an accountant, and I've never done any content strategy for an accountant, but it would start at the same place with keyword research and talking to the business owner and talking to the customer service, and trying to be useful and be an authority and a subject matter expert. So like a practical example, when I worked at an agency, one of our clients was a major, I don't think I can say their name, but they were a major auto care provider. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's not exactly the most exciting thing, but what we did is we created a lot of content like what kind of tires you should buy, why is my engine making whatever noise it was, and then giving people guides to like troubleshoot what was wrong with their car or why they need this tire. And yes, that is not as exciting as writing about weddings, but if that is your business, be useful.
Yeah, that's the end of the day, is bring value to the users on that. What role does YouTube play in your research for content?
A small role. It would depend. Like if I'm researching something and it turns out there's something that's really informative on YouTube, yeah, of course I'm going to watch the video. I'm going to learn more. But I think usually that's not where it comes from, but that doesn't mean that it can't come from there. Right.
Let's talk about planning. So we want to get our website or a page to rank, and a business owner listening to the show has only got a fixed amount of time that they can dedicate to this. Kristie and Robert, how are you dividing up the time in a month? Meaning, is 30% of the business owner's time spent on generating content and 30% on looking at analytics and figuring out what happened, and 40% at maybe trying to figure out some of the technical aspects of the site? Or in your mind, Kristie and Robert, is it 60% of that limited time that he has should be generating content? Where's the priority for someone listening to the show who's got a limited amount of time to do this successfully?
Kristie, I don't know if you would agree with me, but you really can't depend on the client too much because you'll never get content. It's just that they just, a lot of times they don't have either the staff or the time, or they're running a business,
Where does content fall in the big plan, though, in terms of priorities?
Kristie, go ahead.
I think it should be a major priority. It's just as important as having a website. If you don't do SEO and content strategy, it's like someone's offering you a billboard on the busiest part of a highway, and you're like, oh, and it's free, and you're like, no, thank you, I don't want to do it. So if you want to be found online, like, you need to do SEO. So it should be a major priority. Now, should the business owner be doing it? Well, I'm sure most business owners have a lot to do, and they can't devote the time it takes, or if they're going to, that's great, but it's not easy. It's not something you're going to do for like an hour a month and it's good to go. So I think that's why most businesses either have an in-house content strategist or SEO, or they hire a firm or a consultant to work with them. And I will say, there's one business I work with where I work as a consultant for this business, and they have some writers who I can tell them what to write, and I can help them, and I can edit their work, and because they're not SEO writers, they're just writers, So I work with them to make the content they create more search friendly. So you can have a setup like that where you're using the resources you have, but then you're paying for less of a consultant's time because they're not actually creating the content.
That's well said.
How does someone hire a writer? What should a business owner look for in trying to vet out somebody that can provide good content for them?
That's a great question. I think looking at their experience and their resume, like, you can hire someone who's got a degree in English or writing or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be that great. I think you need to look at the experience too, like, who have they actually done SEO for, like, or done SEO content writing? What kind of measurable results did they have? Like, were they able to drive more traffic to the website? Because a content writer who has done things like that is going to be excited to tell you those things. And also you get what you pay for. So yes, you can start with someone who's maybe less expensive and also less experienced, but it's going to take more time and it's going to be harder and your results might not be as good. But to get back to your question, like, what do you look for? Who have they worked with? Do they have demonstrable like data? And then also that doesn't even tell you the whole picture. So I remember when I started with Condé Nast, they actually had me do like 3 test articles. Like they like, I'm pretty sure they didn't even give me a keyword. They were like, what would you do? Like, what would your keyword be? Write it how you would like rewrite this article that needed a refresh. So like, you have to test the person, especially if it's a major contract.
Yeah. Did you say Conway West?
Condé
Nast.
No.
I don't think Kanye hires writers. Yeah. It is hard for a business owner to hire a writer. It really is, because, and a lot of times they don't know what they're looking for. So making sure they've got an appropriate resume, making sure they've done it before. And I think why I find this question particularly interesting is for myself, and even though I'm in a little bit of a different position, the number of emails I get per day of people who want to provide content for us is, probably 2 to 3 a day.
Oh, yeah, more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot. And to try to figure out who's real and who's not real takes some time and energy. And looking at their past work is a great piece of advice, and asking them for statistics. What have they done, and who have they moved up ranking-wise via their content?
Yeah, I think I've never gotten an email from someone like that was like, oh, I'd love to write for this site, blah, blah, that was actually legitimate. I mean, they're pitching their services, yes, but they're not someone I would want to hire.
Yeah, we just talked to a client just about 2 weeks ago, and they had actually hired some freelance writers via an email solicitation. And then when they engaged with us, they said, hey, by the way, we've got this massive volume of content that we've paid for, and let's make use of it. And so we started going through the content, and not surprisingly, it was all duplicate content.
Oh, God.
Every bit of it.
Yeah.
That sucks.
And they had more than $1,000 invested into it. So, at the very least, you got to check what they submit for whether or not it's been plagiarized.
Yeah, and there's tools for that. You can go to like Copyscape and that stuff, and I would definitely.
And sometimes it's as simple as copy and pasting the paragraph and putting it into Google.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Kristie, what role do external links play in your copy development? Are you planning who you're going to link to and writing some copy around that link? Do you have the external links in mind before you write the piece?
No. To be honest with you, for most of the people I work with, we follow every external link, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about tools. Now, there's other things. I was wondering if you use something like BuzzSumo to see what kind of social engagement and stuff like that the articles you're talking or thinking about writing. What kind of tools do you use?
BuzzSumo is great. I would say the things that I use all the time, though, are SEMrush and Google Analytics. I also like to use there's bulkseotools.com has this free web page counter, which is really helpful. Like when I was saying you want to get the word count for like the top 5 results, like you can just pop in those URLs and it will give you all of their word counts, so you don't have to do it manually.
Nice.
What else do I like to use? I love Mobile Monkey for building chatbots on Facebook, but that's a different kind of content. That's social content.
Yeah.
I love Moz's that like free keyword title. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. The title tag tool, where you can just see what it looks like in the SERP without doing anything. That's just handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the things I use the most.
What was that monkey one again?
Mobile Monkey. That's a chatbot builder. You can literally like build a chatbot in like 5 minutes without even writing any code for Facebook Messenger.
I have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah.
What's been your most difficult SEO writing assignment?
I think the most difficult ones are when something literally needs to be like 5,000 words, because it just takes forever. There have been cases where for some magazines, the content like everything that was ranking really was that robust. And you do it. It just takes a lot longer than a 1,000 or 2,000 word article. And I think also when it's something that you don't know anything about or it's super technical, like going back to that auto care example, I was the content strategist that did all of the pages about the cars, right? I don't know things about cars, like nothing. So I think it was hard because it was not engaging to me, but you can do it. It doesn't matter if it's fun or if it's easy, you still just do it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that really makes your portfolio special is your diversity, and you have written about quite a bit of things that I assume aren't down your line of passions.
Yeah, but even if it's not like something you're passionate about, I am passionate about getting clients more traffic. So that is still exciting at the end of the day to see a business grow and a website become better.
So what do you do when you are stuck? Do you have that day when the proverbial writer's block occurs and you just can't get the keys on the keyboard to move?
I mean, definitely there are days occasionally where like you're not as productive as usual, and I think at that point go away from the computer, take a walk, do something else for a little bit, and just come back fresher. There's never a time where like I can't write about something or I can't research. Just sometimes I need to reset, and I think that's true for anything.
Yeah,
she sounds like she's got a great talent. I mean, she should sit down and just
let it flow,
knock it out,
like a great musician. Just sits down at the keyboard, and out comes this beautiful, beautiful melody.
Writing is super fun. I love it. I always wanted to be a writer. I never knew that I was going to grow up to be like an SEO specialist. Like I didn't even know what that was, obviously, when I was a kid. But this is like the path I took, and it's really rewarding.
To give us some sense of it, what would a busy week be for you? How many words are you cranking out in a busy week?
Oh, I don't even know. I mean, I just have. Okay, let me think. I mean, I probably write 8 to 10 articles a week. It could be less, it could be more. Some clients were operating on like a monthly basis. Some it's on a weekly basis. For the magazines, there are like just deadlines. Like they want to get this guide to summer shoes out by this date or whatever. So I think one thing most journalists like really take seriously are deadlines. Like you do not miss a deadline. So if you need to just stay up until midnight, like not to be late, you do it. But because I do social media strategy as well, I can kind of break things up. Like maybe I'll do an article and then I'll answer a bunch of emails, and then I'll do an article and then I'll go do social ads for Facebook. So I try to break it up.
So if you're doing 8 to 10 articles a week at about an average of 500 words an article, you're pushing 5,000 to 8,000 words a week.
Yeah, that sounds legitimate, like accurate. One thing I'm really excited about that I'll plug right now, that's coming out on Search Engine Journal. I was working on a book for I don't even know, the last 4 months. We're having how to dominate social media marketing. It's like a 260-page guide, and that's coming out next month. And so that was one thing that is off my plate now. So room for more articles.
I saw that you're co-authoring that with some people, are you not?
Yes.
And tell us about some of your co-authors. You're in quite a select group.
Yeah. Okay. So we have some social media marketing experts, like Lisa Beyer, who we talked about earlier. She's one of an author in it. Brent Satoris, the partner for Search Engine Journal, and I think most people in digital marketing know him. He's one of the authors, and he wrote 2 chapters that are all about Reddit, because he really specializes in Reddit. And I do not, for the record. I don't know anything about Reddit, so I was happy to have him in the book. You've got Anna Crow, Beverly Teresa, Victoria Edwards. It's a great group.
It really is. Very impressive roster.
Yeah, no kidding. So why don't you tell us this? This is a question we get quite often from business owners. How often should you put content out?
That's a great question again. So you should... okay, we talked about this in the very beginning, like don't create content for content's sake. So if you're setting content goals, it would be first start with how much time you have, or how much the budget you have for who you're going to hire, like how many hours can you buy from a consultant or whatever. Because if you have, let's say, 10 hours in a month, it would be far better to create 2 really good pieces of content rather than 10 really short nonsense pieces of content. So everyone's goals are different depending on their bandwidth and or their budget. That being said, in a perfect world, I think at least 1 piece of content a week, like at a minimum, is a good goal.
Okay. Well said. I mean, we get that question all the time. It's like, should I post 5 a day or 5 a week?
Definitely quality over quantity.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always.
Well, is it that time in the show?
It is time.
Kristie, it is time for one of the favorite features of Search Talk Live called Believe It or Leave It, where we give you 3 statements about SEO and content writing that we found on the internet, and we're going to ask you to tell our audience whether they should believe it or whether they should leave it, and tell them why. Are you ready for that?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, here's number 1. You ready?
Yes.
There is a duplicate content penalty in the Google algorithm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Believe that or leave it?
Believe it.
And tell us why you feel that way.
Because it's true. Like, there's documentation of it. Like, Google has said it. If you duplicate content, even your own content, you're just going to hurt yourself, and, like, you won't rank.
All right. That's succinct.
Number 2.
All right, number 2. Mobile users have less patience for written words, so videos are more effective for conversions on mobile than desktop.
Okay, so we're saying videos are more effective for conversions on mobile than desktop. That's what the statement is?
True.
True or false?
Correct.
Yes.
More effective than content? Is that?
Yes, that's what the statement is.
I don't know. Here's what I do know. Like, you should believe that, yes, the videos are compelling and will drive conversions, but I don't think content is not bad. So that's tricky. I think you should have both.
Yeah, it was an interesting article that we found, by the way. And what the point the author was making is that on a mobile device, people are, A, more often to be distracted because they're potentially physically involved in some other activity, and B, the amount of physical space that they have makes text a little bit harder for them to consume in general than on the wider screen of a desktop where they may be more focused and they've got larger reading area. So the author tried to make the point that in that environment, you can't serve up effectively the same amount of content for a user on a mobile device than you can for a desktop. And it's an interesting theory.
Yeah, me personally, I'm like the old school guy with the phone as opposed to the newspaper. I find myself, because I get my feed from Android, reading more articles than I do watching videos when it becomes news and stuff that's important.
I can speak from personal experience. I read more on my mobile device than I watch videos as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say leave it. It seems to be positing that content doesn't have a place on mobile, and that's not true.
Yeah, I tend to agree. My personal experience is if someone gave me the choice, hey, consume this, like USA Today, I read the USA Today on my mobile device, and they've got articles that are video content and articles that are text. I gravitate to the ones that are text because I can control the time, right? If I make the commitment to the video, then I go, okay, I'm committing to 18 or 20 seconds, whatever it is, whereas with the article, I feel like I'm more in control.
I think they both have their place.
Yeah. Okay, last one, believe it or leave it. Kristie, you're doing great. Number 3, having proper header tags with a targeted keyword in them is more valuable than striving for a specific keyword density.
Believe it.
Believe it. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Okay. So keyword density, I'll just be completely transparent. I don't think it matters very much. If you are writing your article in an organic way, the keyword is going, I mean, obviously, caveat, you're putting the keyword in the first 30 words of text, and you're having like at least 2 or 3 uses of it in the article. If it's more than that, it was probably natural. Like maybe it's like some phrase that doesn't really have any like thing that's synonymous, so it's coming up more. Like if you're not trying to keyword stuff, you probably won't keyword stuff like accidentally, right? So okay, but also caveat, like I do this all day, so maybe someone else would, I don't know. But to that end, I don't think you need to spend a lot of time focusing on density as long as it's in the important places, like in the very beginning and a couple of other times throughout the text. So if we're talking about keyword density versus header tags are way more important.
Believe it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Really good advice.
Okay, now I would say it's time for the Search Talk Live tattoo.
The Search Talk Live tattoo. Kristie, been a great show. You've given us a lot of great things to think about. If you had to summarize all of your counsel and wisdom up in one tattooable phrase, what would your Search Talk Live tattoo be?
I think if I had to give like one thing, and it also had to be short because it's a tattoo, it would be start with keyword research.
Yeah, that's really profound. That's a really good tattoo.
Yeah.
And, you know, as much as we talked about SEO and content writing, it really does come back to that. If anybody's looking for one big takeaway out of this show and some of the others we've done on content writing, it's get that keyword research right, because, Robert, you've heard me say a lot, if you don't know the target, the weapon really doesn't matter. So get the target right.
Well said. All right. Well, I want to I appreciate you being on the show, Kristie, and it's been great. Lots of good information. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Why don't you tell us about where we can find you on Twitter, and maybe if you have a website?
Oh, of course. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun to talk about this stuff with you guys. I hope whoever is listening, I hope you were able to take away something and use it in your business. If you want to connect with me online, I'm Kristie Kellogg everywhere, and that's spelled KristiKellogg. And you can learn more about my company at dazzlingdigital.com. So that's the word dazzling and then the word digital.com.
I thought she was saying it's Kristie Kellogg everywhere, so you put everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Oh, no, everywhere. I
Just
just mean
joking.
like it's the same.
It's your
thing
Twitter
everywhere.
handle and
Yeah. LinkedIn, all the places. It's just Kristie Kellogg.
Well, you have an awesome portfolio. It's very, very impressive, and you've given us a lot of great advice, and it's great having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for listening to the show. Catch us next week. Every Tuesday, 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can catch us on Twitter if you have questions with hashtag SearchTalkLive. And Matt?
And ask people to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Got a lot of good feedback about the past few shows, and I'm looking forward to getting more feedback about this show and ones coming up in the future, because we've got a heck of a guest list coming up.
All right. Well, you guys, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. If you have questions for Search Talk Live, or you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of the show, email Robert at searchtalklive.com. That's searchtalklive.com.